Thank you, everybody, attending our service. We're happy to have you here. Before we get started with today, we have a couple of announcements that we need to make because we are charging our schedule. So we are cutting back on the amount of our service times. We are going down to Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays with a weekly devotional on Wednesdays. Now Tuesdays we held at 6:30, like our previous schedule was, and we'll be doing praise and worship on days if you want to join us. As well as Thursdays, we're going to be doing Bible studies at 7. Um, Also similar to our previous schedule. And then we are taking our devotionals down. We are going to be doing a weekly devotional on Wednesdays. And those can be found at some time in the morning. It varies on who's going to be giving the devotional. So, and then Sunday services are the same. They will be at 2 p.m. and we're adding new speakers into our Sunday services.
We'll be dividing up the lives for praise and word, worship and word.
And we'll be dividing up we'll be dividing up who's,
The live stream.
we'll be
The
dividing
live
up the
stream
libraries.
and the praise worship will be delete, and then the word will go right back.
Understood. Okay. So if you had noticed, if you were tuned in prior to us ending our live stream just a few minutes ago, the reason we are doing is because there is conflicts with the music that we do to praise and worship, and then it interferes with our words. So we'll be ending the live streams after the praise and worship, and then we'll be picking them up just a few moments later to give the word. So please stay tuned. Don't think that we're leaving. We are just ending and start so that there's no conflict on the platforms we're choosing to use. Again, thank you for your time. We're going to dive into the word. Here's Pastor Carlton Howell.
That is way out. I'll just do that. I wasn't mute that thing. I don't know. Oh, this is scratched. I think it's from what did this thing ate. That White House.
There's more.
From this. Well, good. What is it? Afternoon. Yes, good afternoon, everybody. It is a pleasure to be back in your presence again, to give the word of God. I look forward to doing it. Thank you for all those who have been praying for me and my family and praying ministry. And I must say, I have to give it to the Washington family. During the time that the Washington and Newman family, during the time in which you have not seen me on the live and me on social media, basically, they took up the mantle and kept going, and kept the word alive in hearts of those who want to know the Lord and have a desire to know the Lord. And that is, I tell you, not an easy task to do, especially with the demanding schedule we had placed on ourselves, as we believe that we had heard the voice that went on. Now, it's very interesting that, the mission that we were doing was only supposed to be a month. Mind you, the permission was only supposed to be a month, and we ended up going a full year. So I am very, very pleased to say that we accomplished the goal we had set out for, and that much more. God surely did make a way in that where there was no snow, and I am deeply indebted, thankful for those two families for stepping up and doing what they did that me and I made. I don't only seek the face of God, but figure some things out for ourselves also. It was a trying time. It was a good time, and so I am grateful to Paul, Cynthia, on my brother who silently always listens to ensure that right word is coming across, and want to ensure that we have the right word. So to welcome you, I thank you for all coming out, joining with us. I hope that this slide does not move forward. And it does. Oh no, that's what's happening. So we're just gonna go back. Wasn't supposed to move forward, but it just put it on anything but that.
Try?
I'm not doing that.
No, it was buffing and then it jumped over the place.
Yeah. It's wonderful, wonderful technology. If you would, do me a favor. Open your Bibles. I feel so good to say that again. Open Bibles and go to James. Got a little claw and everything. Seriously. Got the little claw. She brought me. Feels so awesome that I have the cloth. I got the water with the cloth. Awesome. Never got the water with the cloth before. Your day's looking up already. You know some past you get water with the cloth and stuff underneath. You see, at the top, bottom. I never got that. I got the water with the cloth. Going somewhere. Thanks for looking it up, man. I'm happy. That's good. Go with me to James. That's not what we're going to be focusing on today, but we're kind of going to jump off. We're going to look at that. We'll go to the 4th chapter. I want to start at the 13th verse. So I'm going to read this, kind of like the intro to what we're talking about today. As you know, today is the first day of Advent. Just so you know, looking in a time of waiting, time of looking forward. I'll get to that later in teachings, but it's not what we're focused on today. That's just a little side, a little nugget for you. As we to look at the life of Elijah, not today, but starting Thursday, and then moving Elijah to Jesus, going up into the next holiday season that we're approaching. Today I want to come from James chapter 4, just as an intro. Then we're going to jump all the way to the beginning of the book, well closer to the book to Judges chapter 7. James chapter 4, starting at verse 13. We're going to start at verse 13. It says, "Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow, we will go to such and such a city, spend a year there, buy and sell, make a profit, whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? It is even vapor that appears for a little time, then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if Lord wills, we shall live and do this, that. But now you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin." Again, in verse 8, instead you ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall do this of that. When we look at this passage of scripture in James, we can consider things and even the will of God in I would say subject matter of what is being talked about and where we're going. Basically, what Jesus is saying that we can know the next minute of our life versus what we're going to do next year and what the situation may be, because God ultimately has the final say in any matter when it comes to life. And we learn his plans for the situation. We make our plans, therefore, based on his plans. This is what we should do. And we find out ultimately, a lot of times through trial and error, I am one who have to fall on my face 5 times to learn a lesson. But when we make our plans and the plan is not centered along what God has wanted. And of course, we generally, most people want the plan to go the way they want to go. You know, we have the vision for the plan, and then any deviation from that seems to put us into a tailspin. If not, but thought about the better plan that God has. I mean, think about it. When Peter and the others had fished all night without catching anything, and Jesus told them to put it out into deeper water, throw it in a place where generally no one catches fish. Peter's plan was for getting to fish for that and go home, but when he obeyed the Lord, he found himself in the best place because God had orchestrated it up before him. When Jesus told the disciples that he was about to die, Peter literally rebuked the Lord. I remember that in Matthew, right? Peter had a good plan. He thought he was going to defeat with the sort of or whatever he needed to do to keep Jesus from going to the cross. But God had a greater plan in store for the Christ. And so Jesus went to the cross and sins were forgiven forever. And Peter found out then at the point that God's plan was greater than his plan. When Goliath saw David, of course he was going to meet him in battle. He didn't take him seriously. Goliath had a plan. You know, his plan was literally to kill David. But we all know the outcome of that because God's plan was greater than Goliath's plan. David followed the plan of God and was victorious. When Israel sent spies in Canaan and saw the giants that were living there, have made plans to find themselves a lead back to Egypt, but over the next 40 years, they died one by one in the wilderness. Those plans failed and God's plans succeeded. They learned that God's plan ultimately was the best plan. We could go on and there's many of examples. I have found that nothing's new under the sun is a very relevant term, especially if we take what the stories in the Bible and we see that we go through these same predicaments, these same situations in life, via the setting and the location be different, technology is more advanced, but we find ourselves up against insurmountable odds. David and Goliath. We find ourselves wandering around looking for someone to validate back into a place and hold us up. Israel is wanting to go back to Egypt. We find ourselves thinking that the person who has to be sacrificed for the betterment of others, Peter, Jesus. All of these things, we find ways in our lives when things are going one way or the other. The Gospels, the Torah, the book of the prophets, the book of the Kings, all these things, the writings, the Episcopal, all of these things, they show that it has been done before. Those who have trusted in the Lord, they came out on time. So I want you to consider God's plan for us, His best for us. And how God will use such a small number to go up against such great odds. It was God showed me Friday, and I looked at this years ago, and I've always liked because it was his first 300. I always call it the first 300, and we always talk about the great battle at Thermopylae. People don't know that was just a reflection, small feat of God did. What God did with it. For me to the text that we'll be focusing on today is Judges chapter 7. We're going to verse 1. And I'm real. I mean, you can read the whole chapter. I'm probably not going to read the whole chapter. I'll read a little bit, then I'll skip to the end. We're going to be literally looking at almost the full chapter of chapter 7. And the word of God says, then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people who were with him, rose early and encamped beside the well of Horeb. So that the camp of the Midianites was on the north side of them by the hill of Morah in the valley. And the Lord said to Gideon, the people who are with you are too many for me to give to the Midianites into their hands. Lest Israel claim glory for itself against me, saying, my own hands have saved me. Now therefore proclaim to the king of the people, saying, whoever is fearful and afraid, let him turn and depart at once from Mount Gilead. And 22,000 of the people returned, and 10,000 remained. But the Lord said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. Then it will be that of whom I say to you, this one shall go with you, the same shall go with you. And of whom I say to you, this one shall not go with you, the same shall not go. He brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, everyone who laps from the water with his tongue as a dog laps, you shall set apart by himself. Likewise, everyone who gets down on his knees to drink. And the number of those who lap, putting their hand to their mouth, was 300 men. But the rest of the people got down on their knees to water. Then the Lord said to Gideon, by the 300 men who lapped will save you and deliver the Midianites into your hand. Let the other people go, every man to his place. The people took provisions and their trumpet in their hands, and he sent all away all the rest of Israel, every man to his tent, and tamed those 300 men. Now of Midian was below him in the valley. We're going to skip now to verse 19. So Gideon and the 300 men who were with him came to the outpost of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, just as they had posted the watch. And they blew the trumpets and broke the pictures that were in their hands. Then the 300 companies blew the trumpets and broke the pitchers. They held the torches in their left hands and the trumpets in their right hands for blowing. And they cried the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. And every man stood in his place all around the camp, and the whole army ran and cried out and fled. Verse 22. When the 300 blew the trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his companion throughout the whole camp. And the army fled at the Archa and towards Sarah, as far as the border of Abel Hola. Then the men of Israel gathered together from Naphtali, Asher, and all Manasseh, and pursued the Midianites. I'm going to stop there. The story is very, very interesting. I find it very interesting how I chose to use such little people, such a small amount, to do such a great, mighty thing. We can see God's plan being totally different than what we would think. We said going into battle 2-to-1 odds, maybe 3-to-1 odds would be good, but God had a different plan. I think if you look, it was almost 100-to-1 odds. It was 300 against a full army. Gideon being planned to march with 30,000 people. 32,000 soldiers. God had a plan for him to march with only 300. The text of how God went down on Gideon is so interesting. Because he didn't just say, hey, okay, it's going to be 300. No. At first, he gave everyone choice to leave. God always has a way to stack the deck in our favor. That is the listen to him. But we also try to stack the deck on our own in our. As we do that, and when we have our own plan, and we come to find out that God has a different plan for our life. He has a different method. We may see methods of how people have achieved certain thing, and a method of how people have accomplished things, and you know, praise God praise God for him, of them, and how they accomplished it. That God's plan for our individual lives may not be exactly the same for us. God's plan for David's life, although David was just a shepherd, and no one would have foreseen at that time him being the mighty man that he was, for he was just a lowly dirt shepherd boy. But God had a different plan. Job, you know, Joseph and Mary, all of Sarsis. So many people who God had a different plan and trajectory for their lives than even what they had, and those who were with them. I was listening to something, and it was about young men in the church, young boys being raised in the church, and the need for not only mothers of the church, but fathers in the church. That and it's by design of the Lord. The direction of fathers in church, masculinity in the church, and with the ever rising ridicule and criticism, which for a lot of things is just of organized religion and quote unquote the church. With all being said, you see a lack of I would say spiritually both parental sides of being there to raise up men and women in the church, going against God's plan. Right? So you have the mothers who are raising these young pastors of the church. And without that father figure, without that stern discipline that father should bring, they tend to become what we're seeing today, very self-centered individuals, controlling, manipulative individuals. And nothing against the mothers. That's what happens when someone is coddled too long, too much. It just is. You coddle a young man all of his life, everything is about him and for him, and he will be self-centered. But you have that father who was there to break that mold, lets him know the world does not evolve over him. However, there is something greater in him than just himself, and that he can accomplish it, and that God has a plan for him not only to better himself, but to better others, and to guide others into their potential greatness. It starts to really resonate. When it first goes with yes, especially you are my son, but the world does not evolve around. And we find this even with the Lord. He disciplines us in such that, say, let's look at Peter. Peter's plan for the Messiah. I know this may make some chuckle, like laugh. What do you mean? Yeah, Peter had a plan for the Messiah. Think about it. Peter had a plan for Jesus. Jesus was not going to go to the cross. Peter had a plan, and the world in Peter's eyes was Jesus not dying. Jesus had to rebuke him multiple times, but he had to rebuke him. God's plan is to declare in our lives, even at the moment when we don't hear it. The test of a consecrated life is being willing to submit to sometimes the odd plan that God has for us. Even when his plan completely contradicts what he laid out for ourselves and the expectations of others. Others' expectation of how God's plan is going to play out in your life. You ever notice that some people play in your life for you? Unfortunately, some parents do that to their children, and it's wrong. They've already constructed the child's life at conception. You have been conceived in your mother's womb, and already you are going to NASA and you're going to space. You will help colonize Mars. This child is going to, and the trajectory of that child's life is not even what the child wants, not what God wants, but what the parents want. And the parents may be living out the dream that their parents had for them, they failed upon. This is how a curse continues to flow from generation to generation. And so they didn't accomplish what their parents wanted them to accomplish, then subsequently what they wanted to accomplish. And so they were ashamed because they were a failure in their earthly mother and father's eyes, not knowing that God has had a plan for their parents, them, and that child, each separate. There's so many children who are pastors and apostles' children, and God has wanted them to be the astronaut land on Mars and not to take a mantle of preaching their church. And God is raising a young man up to come, or a young woman to come to the mantle of that prophet, that man or who it is. But their plan for God's life and the life of their children is completely different. My son will take up this mantle. This kid's 5 years old. Has no idea what God wants life, but knows the parents want. When he cannot accomplish, or she cannot accomplish that plan, then and they're not as successful in what they perceive in their mother or father's eyes, they carry on that same projected into their children. However, a consecrated life shows that you're willing to give unto the Father's plan. Knowing God has a different plan, and it may not look like what you perceived it to be. Here Gideon is ready. He's about to send. God has already told him he's going to battle that he will have the enemy will be given into the hands. And, he's done the calculations, you can see, and he knows how big the Midianite army is. So he gathers himself up to 32,000 men ready. And God then takes and reduces it. 20,000. From there, 20,000 runs away, reduces it 10,000. And from there, God says, no, that's too many. He reduces it all to 300 men. Getting ready to a force 3 times larger than what they had. God is not asking for a leap in heart. This is not a leap of faith. This is trust in his plan. He's asking at this point for not a leap of faith, but more of a step of faith. God knew the fears that this man had when he reduced it down to 300 people. God heard and knew what the enemy's size and strengths were. But when you think about it, for you and me, the Lord expects us to walk in obedience. And I said, I know that's hard to hear, but it is His will. Never asked us to blindly jump off buildings. The enemy tried doing that with Christ. That's what he asks us to do. He always asks his children to simply respond and match to his plans knowing that he has their best interests at hand. This is all the Lord is asking of us. To respond his plan. Knowing that he has a clear and concise plan. And plan is for our good. Even though it will be tough, even though it will hurt at times. God speaks his word to his children, and what he says means. He speaks through his word. He speaks through his spirit. He speaks through other believers. Even speaks through circumstances of life. All of these things a consecrated believer has to be able to hear. The bottom line is God's plan always is directed plainly. And it will lead. When God's plan involves any element of confusion, then it's God's plan. Someone gives you an element of confusion, it's not God's plan. Yes, he can speak to us, but he's speaking to you. What we have to be able to discern is God's plan for our life and others' plans for our lives. We have to be careful that we don't let our... I love my parents. I love my parents. I love my brothers. I love my sisters. But I have to ensure that my parents' plan for my life does not interfere with God's plan or contradicts God's plan. I have to ensure that what my spiritual parents wanted from life does not contradict with what God has for life. I have to ensure that my family and friends, what their plans for my... Yes, even your family and your friends have plans for your life. They see you doing a certain thing. And it's not bad. It's not nefarious. These are not evil people because they do that. Many of them have your best interests at hand. Many of you, your mother and your father, your spiritual mother, your spiritual father, your friends, those who are friends, and they don't have ill intentions in their heart when they have a plan for your life. And I know I'm saying they plan for your life, and it seems like they're trying to direct. No, they're trying to help you and steer you only which way they believe that you should go and where you're headed and things of nature. But you have to be careful that their plan is not contradicting God's plan. So knowing his plan takes a little bit of prayer. It takes a little bit of persistence. It takes a whole lot of patience. It takes some quiet time listening and knowing that it is in his time. It cannot be rushed. And he will reveal his plan to us who are patiently waiting for his plan. And when he does, you will see that plan is truly different than anyone else who would that plan to you. Their plan to you. It is a declared plan, and it is truly the blessed plan that we could have. If you ever know, as we read through several stories in the Bible, even 3 Hebrew boys, to Daniel in his den, and all these things, the plan of God, when we sit down and analyze it, was a very distinct plan. It took individual things to happen for the plan to come to full fruition. And a lot of times those things in the life of the individual are detrimental. It's like God allows a form of honesty to continue to go on to show that no matter what the situation, no matter how insurmountable the odds were, that God had a plan. His plan would always succeed, even in the direst case. We say, why does God allow these bad things to happen seemingly with people? And when we come out on the other end, we say God is good. It's because God is still to this day trying to show his children that he is God. He doesn't really need to prove to us anything. However, as a good father, as he is always showing us how strong he is. And we say, well, what God needs to do that? You do as a father. Those who doubt why God does these things and why he shows himself to be great, forget that they do the same with their sons and their daughters. They show themselves to be a strong man or woman to their children, and their children look at them as such. And they're always showing them that authority. A good father, it's a mother. A good mother is going to show her daughters how good she is. Well, why does she do that? She knows she's a mother. Why does a father show a son strength? He's strong. He shouldn't have that. Why does he continue to remind the child the importance of him? Why would a father remind a child of the importance of his father, his mother, their role? Least the child forget it and does not learn certain lessons that will help him or her when they get into adulthood and render children at home. Because those same mistakes that, if not corrected, will be passed on. Mother to daughter, from father to son, from father to daughter, from mother to son. So God reminds us. Even here, he looks at Gideon and he tells him, I can't allow you to take these. This is too much. Least you get filled of yourself thinking that you did on your own. He wanted to ensure that they knew that it was him who brought them food. At least they could concede it. We can concede it when we think we did it on our own. But the great thing about it is, even in the midst of the fear, we talked about fear, we talked about fear being an act of love, but fear is not truly a bad thing. It does not consume you. But even if the Gideon's fear, they were willing to obey God. They followed his plan. They would have missed out on the best of their life had they not. Why travesty happens? I don't. This is not going to be biblical. This is going to be what I think. What if this story played out a little differently? What if Gideon would have succumbed to his fear, which many of us do, and took the 32,000 into battle? Again, this is not biblical. That happened in the story, so do not take this out of context. Listen to the context of what I'm saying. If Gideon would have ignored the requirements of God's plan, because of fear, because we already know that he was going up against 3 times the number. They had 32,000. He was going up against three times the number, 300. He was going against a very vast army. Imagine, if you would indulge me in a little bit of imagination. Imagine if he would have took the 2,000. Going against the requirement of God's plan, hoping to win, because God was on his side. I do believe that he still would beat the Midianite army. But he would have lost about 31,000 soldiers in the process of doing it. And only 300 of them would have survived. And would have said, why would God allow such a big tragedy? Why would God allow such bloodshed on his children that he loved? Think about that. What if? This is not what happened now. This is not happening. Maybe somebody online comments, Pastor's not saying that this has happened. You know what I'm saying? Then somebody being like, oh, he's the Bible all out of context. We're going on a little imaginary trip. What if Gideon disobeyed? What if Gideon did not follow requirements? I believe about 1,000 soldiers would have died in that battle. And 300 of them would have survived, yet would have won. And would have been considered and thought that they did it all by themselves. And they would have cried and wept at the 1,000 that perished. 31,600, 700 people. Right? That's about right. That's right. 31,700 people. Yeah, 31,700. All of those, they would have cried and wept, and we would have got to the modern day, and the same questions would be asked by those who have a crisis of faith. Why would God allow such pain and turmoil to his children whom he says he loves? Why should I believe there's God? Well, of course, we know that it didn't happen in the story because 300 did not die, nor did the 1,700 die. They all rose to the occasion, defeated the Midianite army, and they were prosperous, and God got the glory. Because they followed the requirements of the plan of God, they heard and then obeyed. If a person or a church is going to walk in the plan that God gives them, they have to do the steps necessary. The first part, the surrendering. God wanted Gideon to surrender his army on his terms to God. He had 32,000 followers. Let's think of Gideon's army as a church. He had 32,000 followers. But, and this is a big but, God's plan saw his followers reduced to less than a third their capacity. He went from being considered the greatest leader of the biggest number of men to next to what at that time can be considered next to nothing. That would do something to ego. But it's no lie. Men have egos. Women have egos too. Humans have egos. Like it massaged. We don't like it hurt. We don't like egos. Gideon learned that this fight was not about him, nor about his army, but about the glory of the Lord. Gideon had to come to a place where he put his ego aside and willing to surrender fully unto Lord, his plans, his aspirations, set aside all of his hopes and dreams, and trust in what the Lord had for him was good. That's what the Lord requires of who walk with him. And his plan, although seems somewhat and sometimes so abstract to our feeble human minds, that we forget that his plan is always the blessed plan, and we, Gideon, will try to march into the battle with the largest numbers that we have for the greater numbers of success, because we've been taught that, but we find that in not trusting the Lord, we still came through victorious, but at what cost? At what cost do we come victorious when we don't follow the step-by-step requirements of the Lord? First surrendering and then submission. For him to succeed, the army had to submit to get to God's hands. First, the people had to, and also people had to submit to the plan of God. Those following Gideon also had a role in the success of Gideon's enemies. And so he gave some simple requirements. They had to be honest with themselves. Who is afraid right now? If you are, go home. If you're not willing to take up the men to go home, if you're afraid, leave. 22,000 of them honest with themselves. I am afraid. So So it required a little bit of submission. Hey, if you meet this requirement, I want you to go home. Don't worry about fighting. I got this. Then the Lord said, even though it's still too much, 9,700 individuals had to go home also. But God had to weed them out. Imagine thinking that you're now part of the chosen in the 10,000. You know that God only wanted 300, but you know. And the thing about it, when God sent that 9,700 home, He just sent them home by themselves. He told them to take up everything and go. That meant they took their shields, their swords, if this was modern time and they had tanks and planes and bombs, they would took all that stuff and left. And so that the men had what they had. They didn't have any extra. They didn't have any reserves. No QRF, no quick reaction force. It was nothing. It was them. God reminded them they had the greatest chances of success in battle because they were obedient to the plan of God. And so the battle, nothing else would overcome them. They had the greatest chances of survival. You see, the Lord's best laid plans for your life is better than what you think. If you want to truly experience victory. If we're going to see God's plan in our life, it requires us to take some steps. Steps are not easy. Nothing I talk about is easy. I can give you the 5 points. Plan being a successful Christian, and we will fail because Jerry's not God's plan. God's plan. I'm not going to say simply requires, but diligently requires submission, requires surrender, and then it requires steadfastness. Steadfastness is one of the hardest, I believe. To obey and proceed in faith. That mountain is like Olympus Mons on Mars. The biggest mountain in the entire solar system. To look at that and say, I must climb that. I must cover that. With what God's given me to conquer it. And by all accounts of human wisdom, what I have is not sufficient. But the Lord said it is. And I start to climb. It's like the analogy of looking at the horizon and knowing that victory right over the horizon. Seeing the horizon moves. It took great for 300 men to go against 1,000. It took great faith for them to take no weapons with them. They had no weapons. We read they had. They had a trumpet. It took great faith for them to blow their trumpets and to break pitchers and shine lights. That was the weapon. The weapon was pitchers and trumpets. That's what they didn't go with. Everyone who had swords and shields and axes and armor, they left. 22,000 of them was afraid, and 9,700 of them didn't meet the criteria. Got sent home. But God answered their obedience. He answered their submission, and He answered their steadfastness with victory. Because it was His plan all along. It's going to require faith to see God's plan in our lives. It's going to take us take steps on that path of faith toward victory, the plan for our life that God has. And it's a difficult road. It is a road of sometimes uncertainty and believing. It is not blind faith. It's simply faith. I say simply not to mean that it is easy. We hear simply and we think that means easy. No. It's difficult. You want things to come easy is usually not good. I tell people all the time when it comes to like labor, cheap labor ain't good. Period. You want cheap labor is generally not going to be good. I told somebody, I said, if you pay me cheaply to do a job, I'm not going to do that well. There's no interest. There's nothing really for me there. So cheap labor ain't good. No, I know how to do it a whole lot better. I'm not gonna for $5 dress right, dress all of your lines. I'm gonna put them in. They're gonna look like spaghetti soup. Work, but it will not be good. It will be efficient, but it will not be in excellence. You pay me cheaply, but good labor is not cheap. To get those perfect lines, to get like you had a lawn service come out, to get the perfect lines in your lawn, you're gonna pay somebody to do it. To get that lawn nice and green, you're gonna pay a good dollar to get it done. And if you do it yourself, you're gonna pay in sweat. And you're gonna pay for it in time. Your labor will not be cheap, even if you were to do it yourself in excess, it will not be cheap. Now, if your labor was cheap done, it will be sloppy. It will not present in any form of excellence. And so therein also faith. It's difficult. If it was easy, it would be sloppy. It's difficult. And it pulls us upon excellence. And so although I say simply require faith, I'm talking about the difficulty to go in to taking those steps. First step we've seen is but anyone who's ran a marathon knows the first mile is mile 22. Maybe 2. I really test your metal. If you ran an ultra marathon, if you did a triathlon, it may not be the swim or the first 5 years of the swim. It'd be that lap back, or that bike ride, or the half marathon that comes after. But God's path is simply, ultimately, the best path for us. Although it requires that difficulty. God always honors that faith. It's of excellence. And it takes it. Faith honors him. His excellence. God's plan in Daniel. Seen that. But faith secured it. That's how I know his plan was good. And as we look at the results from God's plan, we know that in everyone who followed the plan, we see that they were victorious. They were vindicated. They were revered. Victory was great. God showed me this. So once again, he showed me us. Grace. He showed me this. He showed me us. Victory. Such small numbers. victory will not be won with a great army in this victory that we're striving. But and even not even with a fierce battle. But God got all the glory from the victory. And he will get it now. Neither Gilead nor I, nor you, nor the army could go home and brag about how well we've done. It's a set of our church will not be one where we will be able to say they did it. It will be God. When we turn away from our plans and initiatives, victory is there. We are sure that we will receive this victory for His glory. And it will happen in our lives. And we'll find out that we are satisfied. After all, truly that's what the life of a believer, of a disciple, of a child of God is. God is lives, our obedience ought to point to Him at all times. God is not sitting around with your plans. Actually, it's the other way around. You're messing around with His. The thing that you like to do is simply submit to God's plan. And not sacrifice the 1,700 individuals just so you can say I did it. He has the best plan for your life. Blessed plan for your children's lives. Best plan for all our lives. We simply have to trust in His plans. Let His plans lead us, guide us. Take simply the different, multiple steps of faith. When they're easy and when they're hard. That's what we need. Thank you. I pray that God blesses you and then keeps you all the days of your life, and be with you now and forevermore. Again, I thank Paul, Cynthia, Washington family, and the Newman family for all they have done over time. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Like a God continue to bless you and pour into you as He always does. Keep the faith, stay motivated, keep God first place. You are going places. You're definitely going places. God be the glory. See you all soon.